Yeah, that right there, you need to know what it means. Because the world is going to react to it in one manner. The Lord is instructing us to react to it in a different way. But if you don't know what it is, and you don't know that it's coming, you're liable to end up reacting to it just like the world. And I'll tell you something else. The brick and mortar church isn't going to help you with this. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, but right now I'm going to make a prediction. Not a prophecy, just a prediction. When that event happens, the Episcopalians are going to react to it just like the world, because they don't have a clue that it's coming or what it is. But to be fair and honest, a week ago, I didn't either. For the last week, I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Now that we've got the timeline, I think, in a very good position that he has led us to, I want to go to the Olivet Discourse, because I don't want to get caught flat-footed like I was in 2017. I'm appalled at my reaction to the Revelation 12 sign of September 2017. I should have been aggressively acting on figuring out, why did we just see that? You see, when the Revelation 12 sign came, we had a choice. We could look at the Revelation 12 sign on the internet. We could look at it and see that it matched up with what was in chapter 12 of the book of Revelation. But then we had our timeline that we were taught. And which one are we going to believe? What God was doing was making sure that it came at the right time to the right people. Because I'm telling you right now, if you don't die of accident, disease, or by the globalists, you're going to run into this. You're going to run into this, and you need to know what it is. But way back then, when the decision came, the mainstream church said, we'll go with this. When they should have said, we're going with this. This is going to be our North Star. We're going to recalibrate and figure out why we saw it. That's why it came. One of the reasons why it came. This is from the Olivet Discourse. It appears in all three accounts. It appears in Mark, it appears in Luke, and it appears in Matthew. Now, rest assured, by the time we end, you're going to know what that is and why you need to be ready for it. But also rest assured that in the comments section, you're going to run into people who say, oh, no, the Olivet Discourse, that's not for us. We're already raptured. We're gone. Do you know why they say that? Because they didn't reset. They're still working off their lousy timeline. People in the mainstream church are still working off the Dallas Theological Seminary timeline developed by John Walvoord, who died way before the Revelation 12 sign. They're still working off an ancient document that is incorrect. They needed to recalibrate, and they did not. The Lord is specifically telling us in the Olivet Discourse what to expect. Here's what he says in the account of Mark. But take heed, see, I have told you all things beforehand. He's telling us that he is informing us about his coming and what we need to know. This is for us. This event always leads to something else. It's always paired with another event. And you're going to see that it's the sixth seal. It is the coming and appearance of our Lord. Not the second coming, whatever that is. I'm staying away from that. He's not touching earth. He makes that clear in the Olivet Discourse. Don't go looking in the desert. Don't go looking in the inner room. Look up there, like lightning that shines forth from east to west. Where the carcass is, there the carrion gather. They gather in the air. The eagles, the vultures, circled in the air. Look that way. He's not coming to the earth. This is him coming for his church. And you need to know the events, and I need to know the events that precede that. And this is one of them. Now, what we're going to do right now in this video, we're going to look at the account in Luke, because it's very clear. The line is very clearly delineated between when he's done talking about the destruction of the temple, which happened in 70 AD, and he's moving on to his coming. That's very clear. Everything he said that would happen when the temple would be destroyed happened. And he concludes with this statement, and Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So that's informing the disciples. When the temple is destroyed, that's not the end. There's something else that continues, and he's calling it the times of the Gentiles. They'll understand more about that in a few days when he tells them, go therefore into all the nations. The times of the Gentiles has begun. So he then turns to his coming, because they asked about that as well. What about your coming? Now, in Mark and Luke, we're only told they asked about the destruction of the temple. Matthew tells us they actually asked about more than that, and he wants us to know, just like he wanted them to know. There are some things you need to be aware of. Now, he does this in Luke's account. Remember, everything in Matthew at the Olivet Discourse is going to happen. Everything in Luke, the Olivet Discourse, is going to happen, and the same with Mark. We could go to any one. I'm going to Luke because it's very succinct, and it really hits on a special aspect of this verse. That's why I'm using that. He uses two verses, only two verses, of things that lead to his coming. These are important for us to know. Here's the first one. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars. Okay. The biggest sign we're ever going to get is going to be the Revelation 12 sign. So that's either a complete fulfillment of that or it's partial fulfillment. There may be more signs coming. We may have had a sign with the green comet that made its closest approach on February 2nd. Now, because that approach, the closest approach to Earth on February 2nd happened after sundown in Jerusalem, it actually took place, and viewers pointed this out to me, on the 11th day of the 11th month in the calendar of Hebrews, the Shavat, the 11th of Shavat, the event happened, the closest approach. I then noticed that the time of the closest approach, Eastern time, was 1:11 p.m., which means that in some time zones, the mountain time zone in this country, it happened at 11:11 on the 11th day of the 11th month in the Hebrew calendar. And the next day, we had this catastrophic environmental spill in Ohio. I don't know, are they linked? Not sure. What I am sure about is the Revelation 12 sign. It did happen. So we can put a check mark in pencil there. It's either a fulfillment or a serious partial fulfillment of that sign. The next one, tiny bit more difficult. Here it is. And on the earth, distress of nations. I'm reading this from the New King James Version. With perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Now, here's the problem. Is he saying there is perplexity on the earth in the nations, distress, because the sea is roaring, is a tempest, something unusual is happening to the sea? Or is he using the sea as a metaphor, as a figure of speech, as it often is for the Gentile nations? Is he saying the Gentile nations are upset, are in distress, which they are right now, worldwide, from South Africa to New South Wales, from Canada to South America, Europe, America, China, Iran? The people are distressed. Is that what he's talking about? Or is it a distress based on the sea isn't behaving like it normally does? We don't know why. I'm not sure if the sea roaring is a literal or figurative. I'm really not. And I suggest we put both options on the table. I did ask a very smart friend, I'm not going to give his name because that might make it appear that he's endorsing everything I say in this video, and he doesn't even know what I'm going to be talking about. I just asked him, would you look in the Greek and give me your opinion? Does it look figuratively to you or literally to you? He looked at it and he said he believed figuratively. It's saying the sea and the waves are roaring. In other words, the Gentile nations are in a major distress. Let's put both options on the table and keep them in the back of our mind. If it's figurative, then we're seeing the distress of nations right now. I've never seen anything like it. If it relates to something that's going to happen in the sea, well, remember that if it happens, one way or the other, it's going to happen. It may be happening right now. We may be seeing the distress of nations, but here it comes. Men's hearts failing from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. And he's going to explain why men's hearts are failing because of things that they're seeing coming on the earth. Now, I just read it to you out of the New King James Version. Let me read it to you out of the English Standard Version. It's slightly different. All versions convey the same idea. Mankind is in a panic about something they are witnessing. People fainting, people because they didn't want to use the masculine form there, of how very modern of the English Standard Version. I like the English Standard Version. That's one aspect of the English Standard Version I don't like. People fainting with fear and with foreboding of what is coming on the world. Same idea, stark terror. Something is being displayed, and we're going to see what it is. And it has put the world in a panic. Their reality is getting turned upside down. For, the next verse, for. That Greek word means because of what we just heard, because we just heard something. Here's the reason for the panic. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Now, that's a specific event, and we need to know what it's all about. Now, we're going to come right back to it, but just to keep it in context, let me read on so you'll see what the context is. That verse is always paired with another event. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Whether you go to Mark, Luke, or Matthew, it is always paired with this event. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And then he tells us, he's talking to you and me. Now, when these things begin to take place, straighten up and raise up your heads because your redemption is drawing near. Our reaction to whatever that is going to be totally different than the world because we're going to know it. We're going to put it into our data bank and remember it. Because when it happens, your fight or flight reaction is going to kick in. And they're going to take off. They're going to faint. Their hearts might fail. They're horrified, terrified. We, on the other hand, look up because we now know he's about to show up in a cloud with great power and glory. Now, this is the sixth seal he's talking about. Let me show you in other versions so you'll know for certain. These are the events in the sixth seal of the book of Revelation where he shows up. This is from Matthew. The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, which is what we see at the sixth seal. We see the sun and the moon darkened and the stars falling from heaven. And it continues, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. We see that also at the sixth seal. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. You see what's going on? This is where we go to be with the King, dead or alive. It is preceded by the powers of the heavens being shaken. And he says, now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads because your redemption draws near. We will see that event. We will see the beginning, at least, of the powers of the heavens being shaken. And the population of the world is going to panic. They can't believe what they're seeing. And suddenly, eating and drinking and giving in marriage is going to come to an end. And they're running for the hills because the reality is shaken. What is the powers of the heaven will be shaken referring to? Well, if we go to a correct timeline, it's very clear what is happening. War in heaven. That's what he's referring to. That's what happens right before the sixth seal opens and the earthquake, signifying a rapture resurrection event, begins to take place. What is lined up really with the sixth seal should be the result of that war, which is the stars falling to earth, Satan and his angels being cast to earth like winter figs that are no good when blown by a massive wind. Heaven is getting rid of the usurpers, and they're being cast to earth. Prior to that is war in heaven. That's the powers of the heavens being shaken. I can't even begin to imagine what angelic war looks like. What was it? One angel in the Old Testament slayed, a couple 100,000 Assyrians? How many times have we seen one single angel turn back a horde of bloodthirsty warriors running for mommy? What's a war with who knows how many angels? How long does it take? I think because he says when you begin to see these things, lift up your head. I think he's telling us once you begin to see it, it will not be long. So as soon as you see it, start looking for your redemption. I think it's going to be rather quick because it's going to manifest itself somehow in the heavens. Reality is going to be shredded for people. They were not expecting it. They can't believe what they're seeing. Our reaction is totally different. A redemption is about to happen if we know what to expect. If you don't know this is coming, you're going to run with them because you're not going to know. How sad is that? That most of the church today who says they're followers of Jesus Christ, when the penultimate event happens, they're going to take off running before he appears. He wants us to know. He wants us to build that into our thinking. This is the powers of the heaven being shaken, and it comes just exactly where we had it on the timeline. It is war in heaven, and it is massive. And I can only imagine how it will manifest itself in the heavens, what that will look like. I have no idea, but we've got to remember, stand tall. It's going to be tough. They're going to be running. They're going to be panicking. We, on the other hand, look up because we know the King is about to show up on a cloud with great glory and great power. We need to know these things. After he tells us about all of the events that precede his coming for his people, he gives us the parable of the fig tree. Now, I agree, there probably are layers of understanding here about the fig tree. I'm just going to look at the surface layer, and it's also true. He says, look, when you see the fig tree or any of the trees sprout in spring, you know that summer is near. When you see the things he just mentioned, he says, you can know the Son of Man is near. No, we are already seeing the signs in the sun and the moon and the stars. I think we're already seeing the distress of nations. What we haven't seen yet is the powers of the heavens being shaken, but it's coming. Our timeline has been saying it's coming for a couple of months now. And now we go to the Olivet Discourse and we see it also is telling us that's the timeline. The signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, the Revelation 12 sign, distress of nations and war in heaven. If you aren't watching, you're going to miss this. But no, that's not what no, we're just going to be walking someday and we're just going to be taken and nobody's going to know what happened and planes are going to fall. That's not the picture your Lord is telling us. Listen to that crap if you want to, or choose to listen to him. You'll never go wrong listening to him. You're not listening to me. That's kind of funny. You are technically not listening to me. You're listening to him because that's what I'm bringing you. And no, you aren't. Many of you are not listening to me. But seriously, he's telling you these things. I'm just pointing you to what the King is saying. He is saying, look, there's going to be signs in the heavens. There's going to be stress of nation, and there's going to be powers of the heavens shaken that's going to cause men to pass out. You, on the other hand, lift up your head because that's your redemption. Let's go back to Mark, what he told us at the start of this video. But take heed, be awake, be attentive. See, I have told you all things beforehand. How in the world are we going to go, no, that's not for us? That is a gigantic mistake. You're listening to people who have a lousy timeline. who can't explain why we saw the Revelation 12 sign. Do not listen to them. Listen to him. You'll never go wrong listening to him. So let's listen to what the Savior of our souls has to tell us about his coming. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth, distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. And what I say to you, I say to all: watch.